Hello and welcome to this extra credit video. This is a video about small group communication, kind of like an introduction to some parts of it to kind of give students an understanding what this subject is and so forth. And just like the other extra credit assignments I have done, um, you have to watch the video. The questions are hidden inside the video and you answer the questions and the replies. You cannot see anybody else's replies until you post yours and so forth. All right. And it's been discussed how this works in class as well. All right. So let's continue. I'm a little bit disheveled. It's been a crazy semester and so forth. So, but before I get that, let me introduce a general idea and the importance of small group communication. And I'm going to start it by talking about political science. I teach two disciplines, communication studies, of course. This is where you are at right now. And the other one is political science. And the thing about political science is, as a discipline, it sounds weird for me to say it, especially since I'm so disheveled looking. Ugh, Alamo. And that is that it's kind of, as a discipline, it's kind of sexy compared to the other ones. And the reason why I say that is because of our subjects. I mean, we're it's kind of cool in a way because we have James Bond, we have international relations, we have gung ho, fight 'em stuff with militarism and all the military stuff that's implicated in so many different aspects of our discipline. Um, we manipulate the world. We also run the world with government and government levels and in theories and all that stuff. We have so many classes that so many things to do. But here's the thing about political science. There's this part of political science that's called public administration. And I don't teach that class, and I'll never teach that class. I didn't even take it in all the years of political science I took, BA and masters. And it's the unsexy part of it. It's the government agency part. It's how things run and management and so forth. And it's boring. So boring. But here's the thing. The truth about political science, most of the people who graduate from political science degrees with political science degrees don't become James Bond. Most of them, if they go use it, they tend to go into government service and so forth, unless they become lawyers. Of course, that's sexy too. But anyways, but it's the boring stuff. Communication studies has a lot of non-boring kind of, cool, not as sexy, but still pretty cool. I mean, we teach people how to talk and grip an audience with public speaking, and we tell you how to argue and argue it so well that you win debates with others. We teach you how to communicate with other groups, and how to go through barriers, and how to interact with one person after the other that helps relationships and communication one-on-one. There's so many things that we do in communication studies that's pretty cool and adaptable to all the different disciplines as well. If you're a major in something else and haven't found a minor yet or not do a minor, do minor communications, just FYI. But here's the thing. We also have a boring subject. I know that doesn't sound good that I'm introducing it to you like this, but out of all the stuff that we teach in communication studies, lots of really cool, take the audience, type stuff. But small group communication is just like public administration, where a lot of the stuff that you're going to go to into the workforce will have to deal with small group communication. It is the most adaptable, most practical of the communication study courses there is. I mean, yes, interpersonal, most communications that way and so forth, but still in the workforce wise, public, small group communication, it is where it goes. And the three things I'm going to introduce you for the subject will kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about here. And when I teach this class, I always tell students, and I want you for this video is to imagine the groups that you've been in when you are communicating within a group. And so like your family, when your family gets together, bigger family situations, like, holiday dinners or so forth, your friend groups and so forth, could be small, could be whatever. And then of course workforce in that, and by the way, that includes school, because this is your job, just like it's my job. And so it's important to understand how much you have already used the stuff I'm going to show you. Now, before I begin, I just want to say anything about groups. Intrapersonal is communication within one head. Interpersonal is communication with another person. Public speaking is when you deal with a large group of people. When you're not talking one-on-one and you're talking to a group, and it could be a large auditorium, stadium type stuff. Small group communication has a fine number. In my public speaking class, the book defines small group communication as 3 to 12. Anytime there's any kind of group of people, 3 to 12, and so forth. Me personally, and I use this from my small group book that I use, is 3 to 21. Some books say 3 to 24, but 3 to 21, I think, is a really good way to remember it. And then also anything outside of that, max amount is pretty much getting into public speaking then, because then the group is just too big. So that's one aspect of small group communication, that there is multiple people in it, but not too much. And the other part of it is that there is constant feedback back and forth. That's when it is technically small group communication. There's 3 areas that I'm going to introduce to you in small group communication. And that is, sorry, I gotta fix the camera a little bit. There's 3 areas in small group communication I want to introduce you to. In my class, the very first chapter really talks about basic communication and how it leads into small group communication or group communication, and so forth. And what I'd like to tell folks during that section is, and it introduces the students to symbols and symbolic behavior. And that's very important in group communication. So like earlier I said, think about your family and your friends and your co-workers and so forth, whenever you've been in that 3 to 21 setting, and think about some things that occur in there. Like when someone takes charge and they become the leader, that when they take charge of the meeting, that symbolizes to the group, this is the person that we need to pay attention to. This is the person in charge of the group. They don't even have to be technically, in charge. With your family, it's maybe like a parent, they're technically in charge. But with your friends, there's no contracts, there's no organization requirements with your friend group, but yet there are people in the friend group that tend to take charge of the group. So that's symbolism in group communication, when someone steps up and takes that leadership type position. And then there's times when you notice that people tend to favor other people in the group communication. Why do we always talk to Ted? Why do we always go to Ted when we want answers about which movie to go see? Ted's not the movie expert, but always going to Ted is symbolic in that way. Okay, we're going to defer to Ted because he's considered our movie expert or whatever. So there's symbolism there, right? There's symbolism in all types of interaction in that group setting. And I want you to think about your friend group or your family group or your work group, whatever the situation is. Again, 3 to 21. And just think about specific moments where somebody stepped up and became the leader, or they defer to somebody as an expert, or there was a lot of banter back and forth, and this signified that this was a very great day for the group, or in like for your friends. I remember when we were hanging out at the at that burger place, and we were just knocking out the comments. We were just doing really well in the conversation. Symbolism, right? These are success or even failures in group communication can be symbolic to that moment. So your first question is this: think about one of your friend group. I'm sorry, one of your groups, friend, family, coworkers, so forth, and describe symbolism in that group interaction. And you don't have to get in too detailed, but you can just say so and so took a leadership position, or we deferred, or by this person going first, we indicated that it was a symbol that their opinion was the most important in that situation. So just think about when you were in a group setting and symbolic behavior, symbols of, what was happening in the group occurred. Doesn't have to be that long of an answer. 2 to 3 sentences. Three to actually, I would say 3 to 4 would probably be better, but we'll say 2 to 4 sentences where you just describe, oh, we were all meeting one day, and it was our friends, where we don't have a defined leader, but when Betty stepped up, she indicated that there was somebody needed to take that moment to shine or take charge of the group. All right. All right. So I'll give you a moment. Oh yeah, this is what I normally do is I pause, and then what I'll do is I'll hold a card up indicating we're going to the next question. The next section. Ooh, special effects. All right. So the next question had to deal with, I'm gonna have to bring up my screen here real quick. So there's this thing is very important in group communications called roles. And what I mean by roles is when you're in a group setting, we all tend to have certain roles in that situation, not just who the role the leader or something, but there's defined roles that we play. And there's 3 categories. So let me go into the screen and show you two. All right. And so there's these roles have their own. There's three areas I want to focus on with the roles. And by the way, well, just wait a moment before I get into this. But first off, in a group setting, when you have successful communication, there tends to be 2 roles that people take. One role is to keep the group on task, whatever the task is for the group. If your group of friends is trying to figure out what movie to go to or restaurant to go to, then it's their role to get you solved for that task, which is deciding the movie or deciding the food. That's one aspect of what the roles can do. The other one is personal roles, and this tends to be the person who tries to keep the group together, right? And tries to keep the group on task, or tries to get the group to do these things, all right, and so forth. And then there's one last group, and this is the anti-group roles. And these are people who kind of mess up. They're the wrench in the gears type person, all right? And so keep those in mind. In fact, let me get my trusty book out on this. By the way, as a class, this is probably the cheapest book students can buy for any of my classes, political science and group communication studies put together. All right, where's my roles? Roles and groups. There we go. Yep. Get to the page. It's a very short book. I add a bunch of stuff to it to round it out, so we have enough materials to cover it. Theories that are not covered. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the book, and I'm going to name off some roles. And what I want you to do is, if this sounds like anybody in your group, right? Friends, family, coworkers, I want you to remember them because it has to deal with the question. So remember the role that sounds and the person and so forth. All right. So there's these types of roles that are trying to get people to get this stuff done. These are the task roles, right? So like information information giver offers facts and beliefs and so forth. Information seeker asks for additional input and they question and so forth. Elaborator likes to clarify and explain things and provide information on what has been said. The initiator is the one that proposes solutions or tries to get people ideas and so forth. And then finally, the administrator that keeps people on track. These are task roles. So think about somebody in your group, friend group, maybe who's the elaborator or information seeker, and just think about them for a second. Personal roles. There's 3 of them, so there's not as many. And that is personal roles tries to keep the group together on task. Harmonizer seeks to smooth over tension in the group. Who's the harm? Who likes to keep the family not from fighting? Gatekeeper. These are the people like to keep the channel communications open, keep people involved, and may restrict some things, not to overload and so forth, right? These are the gatekeepers of information and discussions to keep the group. And then finally, censor is the person who understands the feelings of the group and so forth. These are the people who could sense discomfort is coming and things of that nature. Now, there's a third category, and these are the anti-group. These are the people like the family member who always causes conflict and so forth. And so these are the anti-group roles that are takes people off task. There's the blocker who indulges in negative and stubbornly resistant behavior. Disagree, brings up disagreements and tries to always oppose ideas. The avoider who obviously tries to get people off task. Um, and tries to do things that are not important for the task for the group's overall goal. The recognition seeker is the person who always tries to get the group to acknowledge them. Like, hey, I'm the one who's the best person at this and so forth, and they always talk about themselves. And then finally, the distractor, the ones who sets people on tangents and so forth, and distracts. So those are the roles. And what I want you to do is I named off a bunch of them. You can always press pause and go back and listen to them again. And your second question is, or second task is to name somebody. You don't have to give like their full name. You don't even have to, you could just say their role in the group: a sister, brother, mom, dad, friend, acquaintance, best friend, co-worker, manager, whatever it is. Say their title in the group, and then indicate what role they play and how they play that role. So you can say, for example, let's see, with my family, they're when we would get together and so forth. I think my mom was the censor, the person who kind of gauge that there is going to get tension and so forth, which by the way, with my family, that was going to happen. But anyways, but that's how I would say it. I said, mother, she was a censor, and the way she was a censor was she always can tell when the voices were being raised or possible conflict was going to happen, right? She wanted to make sure we didn't get too messed up. All right, so this one's like 2 or 3 sentences, so no worries there. So there you go. You can go up to 4. Don't not too many sentences. All right. All right. Let me make sure I'm on camera so I can make sure the special effects kick in. This indicates that there is another section. In this section, the last one is probably like if you were a small group communication expert, you would get into organization communication, which is not a bad thing. I make fun of public administration, political science. I make fun of small group communication and communication studies, but these people get hired. The people who are in charge, who are very knowledgeable in organizational communication. They get hired by corporations and so forth, government agencies, and these, when they say we brought in a consultant for a high amount of money, that's them. These are the folks who do that kind of stuff. And organization communication, I'm going to give you the official definition off of Google, because that way you can look it up. Organization communication within the realm of communication study. Organization communication is the field of study surrounding the areas of communication information flow that contribute to the function of an organization. Woo! That is a lot of nothing, but it's something. It's oh wait, let me get organization communication theory. Yeah, it's the channel, the form of communication and corporation, nonprofit, government bodies, and so forth, how they talk to each other and how external forces can come in and so forth. And there's lots of to it. And just give you an idea of what we're talking about, like when you talk about modern meetings in the workplace, that's theory Z. When you're talking about communication back and forth between different groups, those are channels and how networks are formed within the organization and so forth. Centralized, decentralized, formal channels, and informal channels, how we have mentors and proteges and so much more, right? And there's so much to it. But again, I don't want you to get too much into depth. I don't want any of that stuff. So let me just give you an organization chart, a basic one. All right. Trustee dry erase board. All right. So we kind of get an idea when we have someone in charge, and then and so forth. I pulled two. I pulled a bunch of two colors, and I ended up not using the second one. All right, so you have a basic one right here, right? Where you have the CEO, the person in charge, and then there's the management side, and these are the people that are, your VPs and so forth, and administrators and so forth, and things like that. And then you have departments in this corporation, and each of them have a task administration, supply, delivery and so forth, and manufacturing and things like that. And then in this organization, there might be just a large group of people. There might be lots of different so forth, or there might be another breakdown into groups. And in those things, there's so many different interactions and so forth. It could be very complicated. That's why organization communication experts make so much money, is they try to rectify when it becomes too convoluted or too much or so forth. So what I want you to do for yours is just think about your friend setting or your family setting or so forth, or your workplace, and try to identify the different groups within that organization. So for example, in my family, we have my mom, and then we have the four kids, and the four kids representing this level of administration and so forth. And we have all the different grandkids, and there's some, and there's one that has none, the smart one, and things like that, right? And so you might say there's different levels of groups. There's the grandparent, the current parents, and then their kids and so forth. Do we have grandkids? Yeah, my brother has grandkid. My brother has a grandkid. Oh, and my sister, one of my sisters has a grandkid. So that's the simple group right there. So forth. There's a hierarchy change in our family, since my mom's the most important part of the family. And I'm in charge of my mom. A lot of the stuff that could be a different kind of setup. But think about your friends. Think about the friends. When you get older, you have your single friends and you have your married friends. When you're in high school, you have your jocks, you have your nerds, you have your, preps, you have all these different friend groups and so forth. When you are in your college years, you have your work friends, you have your college friends, you have your home friends, right? So many different levels of friends and so forth. And just explain the different groups. That's all you're doing. Same thing with your coworkers. You can just look at your workplace and there is different groups. We have different departments in the college, but yet we have administration who runs, the paperwork side and so forth. That's a whole different department. IT is a whole different department. So your third and final question is just identify different groups in one of your personal organizations. It could be your friend group, your family group, your work group, whatever the situation is. I think the work group is probably the easiest, but it would be fun to see what you guys think of for different groups inside your organization with your friends or family. I don't have a big family, so my family actually is pretty not much of an organization there. But I know I've met lots of students who have huge families, so that dynamic might be interesting. Put them in groups and so forth. We did, I think, at one point back in the family union days, we had the Fresno family, we had the Visalia family, we had the out of Central Valley family. So there you go. All right. So you have the three questions. Just like I said earlier in the introduction and so forth, what you need to do is take your answers and put them in all one reply, 1, 2, and 3, and so forth. Okay. So there you go. And have a good one. Oh, the last one, 2 to 3 sentences is fine. 3 to 4 might be better. All right. Have a good one.